A 2,500-year-old philosophy could solve your modern problems in just minutes? That the same principles that helped monks find inner peace can transform your chaotic life today? Look, I know what you're thinking. Here we go again with another spiritual guru promising instant enlightenment. But here's the thing. What I'm about to share isn't some mystical mumbo-jumbo. These are 12 practical Buddhist principles that have been scientifically proven to rewire your brain, reduce stress, and create lasting happiness. And the best part? You can start applying them right now, whether you're stuck in traffic, dealing with a difficult boss, or lying awake at 3 a.m. worrying about tomorrow. Let's start with something that sounds simple, but will blow your mind when you actually practice it. Buddha called it sati, mindful awareness. But this isn't just about sitting cross-legged and humming. This is about becoming the detective of your own life. Picture this. You're having an argument with your partner. Normally, you'd get swept up in the emotion, say things you regret, and storm off. But what if, in that exact moment, you could step outside yourself and observe what's happening? Not judge it, not try to fix it, just notice it. That's mindful awareness. It's like having a superpower that lets you pause reality and choose your response instead of just reacting. Neuroscientist Dr. Sarah Lazar's research at Harvard Medical School found that just 8 weeks of mindfulness practice actually thickens the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making and emotional regulation. Here's how you can start right now. For the next 5 minutes, I want you to notice 3 things: your breathing, the sounds around you, and one physical sensation in your body. Don't change anything, just observe. This simple practice is creating new neural pathways in your brain as we speak. But here's where it gets interesting. Most people think awareness means thinking more. It's actually the opposite. True awareness happens when you stop thinking and start sensing. When you're fully present, your problems don't disappear, but your relationship with them completely transforms. I remember reading about Thich Nhat Hanh, the famous Vietnamese monk, who was once asked how he remained so calm during the Vietnam War. His answer? I practiced walking meditation, even as bombs fell around me. When you're fully present to each step, each breath, fear cannot take hold. The ancient Buddhists had a saying, "The mind is everything. What you think, you become." But they weren't talking about positive thinking or manifestation. They were talking about the quality of your attention. When your attention is scattered, your life feels chaotic. When your attention is focused and aware, everything becomes clear. Try this experiment right now. Set a timer for 2 minutes and just focus on your breath. Not controlling it, not changing it, just observing it. Notice how your mind tries to pull you into thoughts about your to-do list, that conversation you had yesterday, or what you're having for dinner. Each time you notice your mind wandering and gently bring it back to your breath, you're strengthening your awareness muscle. This isn't just ancient wisdom. It's cutting-edge neuroscience. When you practice mindful awareness regularly, you literally rewire your brain for peace, focus, and emotional stability. Now here's a principle that'll change how you see everything. The law of impermanence, or anicca, as Buddha called it. Everything changes. Everything passes. Nothing lasts forever. And paradoxically, when you truly accept this, you become free. Think about your biggest problem right now. Maybe it's a relationship issue, financial stress, or health concerns. Now imagine someone telling you, "This too shall pass." Your first instinct might be to resist that idea, especially if you're suffering. But here's what the Buddha understood 2,500 years ago, that modern psychology is just catching up to. Resistance to change creates suffering. Dr. Stephen Hayes, the founder of acceptance and commitment therapy, has shown through decades of research that psychological flexibility, the ability to adapt to changing circumstances, is the single strongest predictor of mental health and life satisfaction. But let's get practical. How do you embrace impermanence when you're going through a divorce, losing a job, or dealing with illness? The Buddhist approach isn't to become passive or indifferent. It's to understand that everything in life comes in waves. Imagine you're at the beach, standing in the ocean. You can either fight against the waves and get tumbled around, or you can learn to move with them. When you understand that emotions, circumstances, even thoughts are like waves, they rise, peak, and fall, you stop taking them so personally. I came across a powerful story about a student who approached his Zen master in despair. "Master," he said, "I'm going through the worst period of my life. When will this suffering end?" The master smiled and replied, "When did it begin?" The student thought for a moment and said, "About 6 months ago." The master nodded. So it had a beginning. What has a beginning must have an end. This isn't about being cold or detached. It's about recognizing the fundamental nature of reality. Your current job situation? Temporary. That argument with your friend? It will pass. Even your life itself is impermanent. And when you really let that sink in, something magical happens. You stop wasting time on things that don't matter. Research by Dr. Hal Hershfield at UCLA shows that people who regularly contemplate the temporary nature of life make better decisions, have stronger relationships, and experience less anxiety about future events. They call it temporal reframing, but Buddha called it wisdom. Here's a simple practice you can start today. When you're feeling overwhelmed by any situation, ask yourself 3 questions. How did this situation begin? What would have to happen for it to change? What's one small thing that's already different from when it started? This shifts your perspective from being stuck to seeing the natural flow of change. The most liberating part of impermanence isn't that bad things end. It's that you stop grasping so tightly to good things. When you know that this beautiful sunset, this loving moment with your child, this feeling of success is temporary, you become fully present to it instead of worrying about losing it. This might be the most misunderstood Buddhist principle in the West. Non-attachment doesn't mean you stop caring or become emotionally numb. It means you care deeply without being controlled by the outcome. Picture a master archer. She aims carefully, draws the bow with precision, and releases the arrow with perfect form. Once the arrow leaves the bow, she doesn't chase after it, worry about it, or try to control its flight. She's fully committed to the process, but completely detached from the result. That's non-attachment. Most of us live our lives like we're chasing arrows. We send out our efforts, applying for jobs, starting relationships, pursuing goals, and then we torture ourselves trying to control what happens next. We check our phones obsessively, overthink every interaction, and make ourselves miserable with what-if scenarios. Dr. Tim Kasser's research at Knox College reveals that people who are overly attached to outcomes, whether it's money, status, or approval, report lower levels of well-being and higher levels of anxiety and depression. The Buddhist principle of non-attachment isn't just spiritual wisdom. It's psychological health. But let's dig deeper into what this looks like in real life. Say you're starting a new business. Attachment would have you checking sales figures every hour, losing sleep over competition, and basing your self-worth on quarterly results. Non-attachment means you pour your heart into creating value, serving customers, and improving your product, while staying emotionally detached from whether you succeed or fail. This doesn't mean you don't have preferences or goals. It means you're not enslaved by them. You're like water. You have a direction, but you flow around obstacles instead of banging your head against them. I love the story of the Tibetan monk who spent 20 years building intricate sand mandalas, detailed, colorful patterns made from millions of grains of colored sand. The moment each mandala was completed, he would sweep it away. When asked why he destroyed his beautiful creations, he said, "To practice letting go of attachment. The beauty isn't in keeping it. The beauty is in creating it." Here's where this gets really practical. Think about your relationships. How often do you love someone with conditions? I love you as long as you make me happy. I love you as long as you meet my expectations. This is attachment masquerading as love. True love, non-attached love, says, I love you for who you are, not for what you do for me. Research by Dr. John Gottman, who can predict divorce with 94% accuracy, shows that couples who practice what he calls emotional independence, caring deeply while maintaining individual identity, have the strongest, most lasting relationships. Buddha would call this loving without attachment. Try this exercise. Think of something you really want right now. Maybe it's a promotion, a relationship, or a specific outcome. Now ask yourself, what would I do differently if I cared just as much but wasn't attached to getting it? Notice how this question shifts your energy from anxious grasping to purposeful action. The paradox of non-attachment is that when you stop desperately needing things to happen, they often do. Not because of some mystical law of attraction, but because you're operating from a place of inner strength rather than desperate need. People are drawn to that energy. Opportunities open up. Creativity flows more freely. If there's one thing that will transform your life faster than anything else, it's learning to forgive yourself. Not next week, not after you've earned it, but right now, for everything you think you've done wrong. Most people carry around a harsh inner critic that would be considered abusive if it were another person. You wouldn't let someone follow you around all day saying, "You're stupid, you always mess up, you're not good enough." But somehow you let your own mind do exactly that. Buddhism teaches that this inner violence is one of the greatest causes of suffering. The Buddha called it ahimsa, nonviolence, and it starts with how you treat yourself. Dr. Kristen Neff's groundbreaking research at the University of Texas has shown that self-compassion is more strongly linked to emotional well-being than self-esteem, confidence, or optimism. But here's what most people get wrong about self-forgiveness. They think it means making excuses or lowering standards. Actually, it's the opposite. When you stop wasting energy beating yourself up, you have more energy to actually improve and grow. Think about it logically. Has harsh self-criticism ever made you perform better long-term? Sure, it might motivate you for a day or two, but research consistently shows that self-compassion leads to greater motivation, better performance, and more resilience in the face of setbacks. Let me share a story that illustrates this perfectly. A meditation student approached the Dalai Lama and said, "Your Holiness, I have such terrible thoughts about myself. I hate myself." The Dalai Lama looked confused and asked the translator to repeat the statement. After hearing it again, he turned to the student with genuine surprise and said, "But why? You are a human being. You have Buddha nature. Why would you hate yourself?" This wasn't just kindness. It was pointing to a fundamental truth. Your essential nature isn't flawed. Your mistakes don't define you. Your past doesn't determine your worth. This isn't feel-good philosophy. It's recognizing reality. Here's a powerful practice adapted from Tibetan Buddhism. Think of a mistake you made recently. Now imagine your best friend had made the exact same mistake and came to you for comfort. What would you say to them? How would you speak to them? Notice the tone, the words, the energy. Now turn that same compassion toward yourself. Dr. Paul Dilbert's research on compassion-focused therapy shows that when people practice self-compassion, their stress hormones decrease, their immune function improves, and their overall mental health significantly enhances. Your body literally responds to self-kindness like medicine. But self-forgiveness isn't just about being nice to yourself. It's about breaking the cycle of shame that keeps you stuck. Shame says, "I am bad." Guilt says, "I did something bad." Guilt can motivate change. Shame paralyzes you. When you forgive yourself, you're moving from shame to guilt to learning to growth. The Buddhist approach to self-forgiveness has 3 steps. recognition without judgment, understanding with compassion, and commitment to doing better. Notice you don't skip the last step. This isn't about excusing harmful behavior. It's about creating the emotional safety necessary for real change. Try this right now. Place your hand on your heart and think of something you've been criticizing yourself for. Then say these words, either out loud or silently. This is a moment of suffering. Suffering is part of human experience. May I be kind to myself in this moment. Feel how your body responds to receiving compassion instead of attack. Buddha's most practical teaching might be the middle way, avoiding extremes and finding balance. This isn't about being lukewarm or compromising your values. It's about understanding that sustainable change comes from moderation, not from swinging wildly between extremes. Think about how most people approach self-improvement. They go from eating pizza every day to only drinking green juice, from never exercising to working out 3 hours daily, from being completely disorganized to trying to control every minute of their schedule. What happens? They burn out, swing back to the other extreme, and feel like failures. The middle way says there's a more intelligent approach. Buddha discovered this after spending years as a pampered prince, then years as an ascetic monk starving himself in the forest. Neither extreme led to enlightenment. It was only when he took a middle path, neither indulgence nor deprivation, that he found what he was seeking. Dr. Roy Baumeister's research on willpower at Florida State University shows that people who practice moderate, consistent habits have much higher success rates than those who attempt dramatic changes. The Buddhist middle way isn't just ancient wisdom. It's optimal performance science. But the middle way goes deeper than just habit formation. It's about finding balance in how you relate to everything: work and rest, solitude and connection, planning and spontaneity, effort and ease. Consider your relationship with emotions. Most people either suppress their feelings completely or get completely overwhelmed by them. The middle way teaches you to feel your emotions fully without being controlled by them. You neither push them away nor drown in them. You surf them. I read about a successful CEO who credited his business success to practicing the middle way. Instead of working 80-hour weeks like his competitors, he worked 50 hours with complete focus. Instead of never taking vacations, he took regular short breaks. Instead of saying yes to every opportunity, he chose selectively. His company outperformed businesses led by workaholics because his approach was sustainable. Here's how to apply the middle way to any area of your life. First, notice where you tend toward extremes. Are you a perfectionist or completely disorganized? Do you people please or isolate yourself? Do you overwork or procrastinate? The middle way isn't about finding some mathematical midpoint. It's about finding what's sustainable and effective. Research by Dr. Angela Duckworth on grit shows that people who achieve long-term success practice what she calls deliberate practice, focused, consistent effort over time rather than sporadic, intense bursts. This is the middle way in action. Let's get specific about relationships. The middle way in relationships means being neither clingy nor distant, neither overly accommodating nor selfishly demanding. It means caring about others without losing yourself, and maintaining your individuality without becoming isolated. In Buddhism, they say the middle way is like tuning a stringed instrument. If the strings are too loose, you can't make music. If they're too tight, they'll snap. The sweet spot, where beautiful music happens, is right in the middle. Try this practice. Pick one area of your life where you tend toward extremes. For the next week, consciously practice moderation. If you're a workaholic, leave the office at a reasonable time every day. If you're a procrastinator, work for just 25 minutes without breaks. Notice how sustainability and balance actually increase your effectiveness. The middle way isn't about mediocrity. It's about optimization. It's recognizing that the most powerful force in nature, water, is also the most flexible. It carves through mountains not through force, but through persistence and adaptability. Here's a principle that will completely shift how you see yourself and your problems. Interdependence. Buddhism teaches that nothing exists in isolation. Everything is connected to everything else in an intricate web of mutual influence and support. This might sound abstract, but it has immediate practical implications for your life. When you truly understand interdependence, you realize that your problems aren't just your problems, and your successes aren't just your successes. Everything arises from conditions, relationships, and circumstances beyond your individual control. Think about something as simple as the coffee you drank this morning. That coffee connected you to farmers in Colombia, truck drivers, warehouse workers, the rain that watered the plants, the soil that nourished them, and countless other elements. You didn't create that coffee alone, and you can't enjoy it alone. You're part of a vast interconnected system. Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, who brought mindfulness to Western medicine, often talks about how understanding interdependence reduces anxiety and depression. When you realize you're not a separate, isolated individual struggling alone against the world, but rather part of an interconnected whole, everything changes. But let's make this practical. When you're dealing with a difficult person, maybe a coworker who's always negative, or a family member who's constantly critical, interdependence teaches you to ask, what conditions created this person's behavior? What are they struggling with that I can't see? This doesn't mean you become a doormat or excuse harmful behavior. It means you stop taking things so personally. That coworker's negativity isn't about you. It's about their pain, their stress, their unmet needs. When you see this clearly, you can respond with wisdom instead of reactivity. Research by Dr. Dacher Keltner at UC Berkeley shows that people who regularly contemplate interconnectedness have lower levels of inflammation in their bodies, stronger immune systems, and greater sense of life satisfaction. When you feel connected to something larger than yourself, your nervous system literally relaxes. Here's a story that illustrates this beautifully. A Zen student was complaining to his master about all the problems in his life, his job, his relationships, his health. The master handed him a glass of water and said, "This water is your problems." Then he added salt to the water and had the student taste it. "How does it taste?" "Terrible," the student replied. Then the master led him to a lake and had him put the same amount of salt into the lake and taste that water. "How does it taste now?" "Fresh and clean." The master smiled. "The problems are the same. But when you expand your perspective to see your connection to the whole, they become manageable." Interdependence also transforms how you think about success and failure. Instead of seeing yourself as solely responsible for everything that happens to you, you recognize the web of support, opportunity, and conditions that contribute to every outcome. This isn't about avoiding responsibility. It's about seeing responsibility more accurately. When you succeed, you feel gratitude for all the help you received. When you fail, you don't carry the entire burden alone. This balanced perspective prevents both arrogance and despair, two extremes that keep people stuck. Try this contemplation. Think of something you accomplished that you're proud of. Now trace back all the conditions that made it possible. The people who helped, the education you received, the opportunities that arose, even the challenges that strengthened you. Notice how this achievement wasn't created in isolation, but emerged from countless interconnected factors. The most profound aspect of interdependence is realizing that helping others is helping yourself, and harming others is harming yourself. This isn't karma in some mystical sense. It's recognizing that we're all part of the same system. Your well-being and everyone else's well-being are intimately connected. If mindfulness is the foundation of Buddhist practice, loving kindness is its heart. The Buddha taught that developing metta, unconditional friendliness toward all beings, is one of the most powerful ways to transform your mind and your life. But let's be clear about what loving kindness actually means. It's not about being a pushover or pretending to like everyone. It's about cultivating a basic stance of goodwill toward yourself and others, regardless of whether they deserve it or not. Dr. Barbara Fredrickson's research at the University of North Carolina shows that people who practice loving-kindness meditation for just 7 weeks show increased daily experiences of positive emotions, greater life satisfaction, reduced symptoms of depression, and even longer telomeres, markers of cellular aging. Loving-kindness literally makes you happier and healthier. The traditional practice starts with yourself. You begin by offering loving-kindness to yourself with phrases like, "May I be happy," "May I be healthy," "May I be at peace." This isn't narcissistic. It's practical. You can't give what you don't have. If you're harsh and critical with yourself, that's what you'll offer others. Then you extend loving kindness to someone you love easily. Maybe a child, a pet, or a dear friend. Then to a neutral person, the checkout clerk, a neighbor you barely know. Then to someone difficult in your life. Finally, to all beings everywhere. Here's what's remarkable about this practice. It doesn't require the other person to change or even to know you're doing it. The transformation happens in you. When you regularly practice wishing others well, you literally rewire your brain for positivity and connection. I came across a powerful story about Nelson Mandela practicing loving kindness toward his prison guards during his 27 years of imprisonment. He didn't do this because they deserved it, but because he refused to let hatred and resentment poison his own heart. By the time he was released, he had transformed not just himself, but the entire political landscape of South Africa. But loving kindness isn't just for extreme situations. It's a daily practice that transforms ordinary interactions. When someone cuts you off in traffic, instead of anger, you can think, "May this person find peace." When your teenager is being difficult, instead of frustration, "May you be happy and free from suffering." Research by Dr. Stefan Hoffman at Boston University shows that loving kindness meditation increases social connectedness and reduces implicit bias against marginalized groups. When you practice genuine goodwill, you become more open, less defensive, and more creative in solving interpersonal problems. Here's the paradox of loving kindness. It's completely selfless and completely selfish at the same time. You practice it to benefit others, but you're the one who experiences the immediate benefits: less anger, more joy, better relationships, improved health. The most challenging aspect of loving kindness is extending it to people who have hurt you. This doesn't mean excusing their behavior or putting yourself in harm's way. It means refusing to let their actions turn you into someone bitter and closed-hearted. A meditation teacher once told me, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You're the one who gets burned. Loving kindness is putting down the hot coal, not for their sake, but for yours. Try this practice right now. Think of someone in your life who's been difficult lately. Take a deep breath and silently offer them this phrase: "May you be free from suffering." Notice any resistance that comes up. Don't force it. Just plant the seed of goodwill and let it grow naturally. The ultimate goal of loving kindness isn't to become a saint or win popularity contests. It's to free yourself from the prison of resentment, judgment, and separation. When your default mode is friendliness rather than defensiveness, life becomes infinitely easier and more joyful. This principle might save your sanity. The serenity prayer made famous by Alcoholics Anonymous actually comes from Buddhist wisdom. Accepting what you cannot control, changing what you can, and developing the wisdom to know the difference. But most people have this completely backwards. They spend 90% of their energy trying to control things they can't control: other people's opinions, the weather, the past, the future, the economy, their teenagers, and virtually no energy on what they can control: their thoughts, their responses, their choices, their habits. The Buddha taught about 2 arrows, The first arrow is what happens to you: loss, illness, disappointment, conflict. The second arrow is your reaction to what happens, the story you tell yourself, the resistance you create, the suffering you add on top of the pain. You can't always avoid the first arrow, but the second arrow is optional. Dr. Stephen Hayes, founder of acceptance and commitment therapy, has conducted hundreds of studies showing that psychological flexibility, the ability to accept what you cannot control while taking action on what you can, is the strongest predictor of mental health and life satisfaction. Let's get specific about what you can and cannot control. You cannot control what other people think of you, whether you get the job, how your children turn out, whether your partner loves you, if you get sick, the traffic, the weather, or what happened in the past. You can control how much effort you put into your work, how you treat other people, what you focus on, how you spend your time, what you eat, how much you exercise, who you surround yourself with, and how you respond to whatever happens. The moment you truly accept this distinction, you'll feel a tremendous weight lift off your shoulders. All that energy you've been wasting trying to control the uncontrollable becomes available for actually improving your life. I love the story of Epictetus, the ancient Stoic philosopher who was influenced by Buddhist thought. He was born a slave and had a permanent limp from a leg injury. When people asked how he remained so peaceful despite his circumstances, he said, "I cannot control what happens to me, but I can control how I think about what happens to me, and that is enough." This doesn't mean becoming passive or fatalistic. It means becoming strategic about where you invest your energy. When you accept what you cannot control, you become incredibly effective at changing what you can control. Research by Dr. Amy Arnsten at Yale Medical School shows that when people try to control uncontrollable situations, their prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for decision-making, literally goes offline. Acceptance isn't just wise. It's neurologically necessary for clear thinking. Here's a practical exercise. Make 2 lists. On one side, write everything you're currently worried about or trying to control. On the other side, categorize each item as either can control or cannot control. For everything in the cannot control column, your job is to practice acceptance. For everything in the can control column, your job is to take action. The most liberating part of this principle is realizing that acceptance doesn't mean approval. You don't have to like what's happening to accept it. Acceptance simply means stopping the internal war against reality. When you stop fighting what is, you have energy to create what could be. Buddhism teaches that suffering comes from attachment to how things should be, rather than accepting how things are. This doesn't make you passive. It makes you powerful. When you work with reality instead of against it, you become like water, flexible, persistent, and ultimately irresistible. Here's the truth that most people don't want to face. Your entire life is happening right now. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, but in this exact moment. Everything else is just thoughts, memories of the past, or fantasies about the future. The Buddha called this present moment awareness. And it's not just spiritual philosophy. Neuroscientist Dr. Matt Killingsworth's research at Harvard, involving over 15,000 people, found that people are happiest when they're fully present to whatever they're doing, regardless of what that activity is. Even doing unpleasant tasks mindfully made people happier than letting their minds wander during pleasant activities. But here's what makes present moment living so challenging. Your mind is literally designed to time travel. It's constantly pulling you into past regrets or future anxieties. Your brain's default mode network is always running scenarios, making plans, rehashing conversations. This mental time travel was useful for survival, but it's terrible for happiness. Think about your typical day. How much time do you spend actually present to what you're doing? When you're eating breakfast, are you tasting the food or thinking about your schedule? When you're talking to your partner, are you listening or planning what to say next? When you're walking, Are you feeling your feet on the ground or lost in mental chatter? The practice of present moment awareness is simple but not easy. It's about repeatedly returning your attention to what's actually happening right now. Your breath, your body, your immediate environment, the person in front of you, the task at hand. Dr. Sarah Lazar's neuroimaging studies at Massachusetts General Hospital show that just 8 weeks of present moment mindfulness practice increases cortical thickness in areas associated with attention and sensory processing. You literally grow brain matter that helps you stay present. But present moment living isn't just about meditation. It's about bringing full attention to ordinary activities. Washing dishes with complete attention to the warm water, the soap bubbles, the smooth plates. Walking with awareness of each step, each breath, each sensation. Listening to music, not as background noise, but as the main event. I remember reading about a Zen master who was asked about the secret to happiness. He said, "When I eat, I eat. When I walk, I walk. When I sleep, I sleep." The questioner was confused, but everyone does that. The master smiled and replied, "No, when most people eat, they think. When they walk, they plan. When they sleep, they worry. I just do one thing at a time." This complete presence to whatever you're doing has magical effects. Food tastes better. Conversations become more meaningful. Work becomes more engaging. Even mundane activities become opportunities for peace and joy. The key insight is that happiness isn't found in getting somewhere else or achieving something different. It's found in fully experiencing where you are and what you're doing right now. This moment, whatever it contains, is your life. Research by Dr. Judson Brewer at Yale shows that present moment awareness literally quiets the brain's default mode network, the part responsible for self-referential thinking and mind-wandering. When you're fully present, the constant mental chatter that creates anxiety and depression naturally settles. Here's a simple practice you can do anywhere. Choose one routine activity: brushing your teeth, drinking coffee, or walking to your car. For the next week, do this activity with complete attention. Notice every sensation, every detail, every moment. This isn't about changing what you do. It's about changing how you do it. The most profound aspect of present moment living is realizing that this moment is all you ever actually have. Your past exists only as present moment memories. Your future exists only as present moment plans and fantasies. When you fully embrace this truth, you stop postponing happiness and start living it now. Words have power, more power than most people realize. The Buddha included right speech as one of the components of the Noble Eightfold Path because he understood that how we communicate shapes not just our relationships, but our entire reality. Right speech isn't about political correctness or walking on eggshells. It's about speaking in ways that reduce suffering and increase understanding. The Buddha identified 4 aspects of right speech: speaking truthfully, speaking helpfully, speaking kindly, and speaking only when necessary. Dr. John Gottman's research on relationships shows that the way couples communicate is the strongest predictor of whether they'll stay together or divorce. He can predict relationship outcomes with 94% accuracy based on communication patterns alone. The Buddhist principles of right speech aren't just moral guidelines. They're relationship survival skills. Let's break this down practically. Speaking truthfully doesn't mean being brutally honest about everything. It means not lying, not exaggerating, and not speaking from unverified assumptions. Before you speak, ask yourself, is this true? Do I know this for certain? Speaking helpfully means asking, will these words reduce suffering or increase it? Will they solve a problem or just vent my emotions? Sometimes the most helpful thing is to say nothing at all. Sometimes it's to listen more deeply before responding. Speaking kindly doesn't mean being fake or sugarcoating everything. It means considering the impact of your words on the person hearing them. The same message can be delivered with compassion or with cruelty? Which one is more likely to create positive change? Speaking only when necessary means not filling every silence with chatter, not gossiping, and not speaking just to hear your own voice. In our culture of constant communication, the power of thoughtful silence is revolutionary. I came across a story about a Buddhist monk who took a vow of noble silence for 3 years. When asked why, he said, "I wanted to learn the difference between what I need to say and what I want to say. Most of what I thought I needed to say, I just wanted to say." But right speech goes beyond just the words you use. It includes the tone, the timing, and the intent behind your communication. Research by Dr. Albert Mehrabian shows that communication is 7% words, 38% tone of voice, and 55% body language. How you say something matters more than what you say. Consider how you talk to yourself. Most people's internal dialogue would be considered verbal abuse if it came from another person. Right speech includes speaking to yourself with the same kindness and respect you'd show a good friend. Your relationship with yourself sets the template for all your other relationships. The practice of right speech also means taking responsibility for the energy you bring into conversations. Are you speaking from curiosity or judgment? From love or fear? From a desire to understand or a need to be right? The intent behind your words shapes their impact. Here's a powerful practice. For 1 week, before speaking in any emotionally charged situation, pause and ask yourself these 3 questions. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it kind? If the answer to any of these is no, consider staying silent or finding a different way to express yourself. Dr. Marshall Rosenberg's research on nonviolent communication shows that when people learn to speak without judgment, criticism, or demands, their relationships dramatically improve and conflicts resolve more easily. Right speech isn't just about being polite. It's about creating the conditions for genuine understanding and connection. The most challenging aspect of right speech is learning to communicate your needs and boundaries without attacking or blaming others. Instead of saying, "You never listen to me," you might say, "I feel unheard when I'm interrupted. Could we try taking turns speaking?" Same message, completely different energy. Right speech also means knowing when not to speak. Sometimes the most compassionate response is silence. Sometimes the wisest action is to walk away from a conversation that's going nowhere. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to engage in gossip, criticism, or negativity. The ultimate goal of right speech is to use your words as tools for healing rather than weapons for harm. When you speak from a place of wisdom, compassion, and genuine care for others' well-being, your words become a force for positive transformation in the world. In our instant gratification culture, patience might be the most radical Buddhist principle of all. The Buddha taught that everything worthwhile takes time to develop, and that rushing the process often destroys the very thing you're trying to create. Think about it. You can't force a flower to bloom faster by pulling on its petals. You can't lose weight permanently by crash dieting. You can't build meaningful relationships by being pushy or demanding. The best things in life unfold naturally when given proper time and attention. Dr. Walter Mischel's famous Stanford marshmallow experiment showed that children who could delay gratification, wait for a second marshmallow instead of eating the first one, immediately had better life outcomes decades later. They scored higher on SATs, had lower rates of obesity, and were less likely to have substance abuse problems. But Buddhist patience isn't passive waiting. It's active engagement with the present moment while trusting the natural timing of things. It's like being a gardener. You plant seeds, water them, provide proper conditions, and then allow nature to do its work. The Buddha himself exemplified this principle. He spent 6 years in intense spiritual practice before his enlightenment. He didn't give up after a few months because he wasn't seeing results. He understood that profound transformation takes time, and that each day of practice was valuable regardless of visible progress. Modern neuroscience confirms this wisdom. Dr. Rick Hanson's research shows that it takes sustained attention and repetition to create lasting changes in the brain. What he calls taking in the good, deliberately focusing on positive experiences, only works when done consistently over time. But patience becomes much easier when you understand that growth happens in cycles, not straight lines. You'll have breakthrough days and setback days. You'll make progress and then seem to plateau. This isn't failure. It's the natural rhythm of development. I love the story of a student who complained to his meditation teacher, "I've been meditating for 3 months and I'm still not enlightened." The teacher smiled and said, "That's wonderful. You're learning patience. That's the first step toward wisdom." The key to developing patience is focusing on the process rather than the outcome. Instead of asking, "When will I be happy?" ask, "How can I be more present to this moment?" Instead of, "When will I succeed?" ask, "What can I learn from this experience?" Research by Dr. Angela Duckworth on grit shows that people who achieve long-term success aren't necessarily more talented or intelligent than others. They're more persistent. They keep going when others give up. They understand that excellence is built through countless small improvements over time. Buddhist persistence isn't about forcing or struggling. It's about showing up consistently, especially when you don't feel like it. It's about treating each day as an opportunity to practice, regardless of how you performed yesterday. The most beautiful aspect of patience is that it transforms waiting from suffering into peaceful engagement. When you're truly patient, you're not waiting for your life to begin when you reach some future goal. You're living fully in each moment of the journey. Here's a practice that develops both patience and persistence. Choose one small positive habit, maybe 5 minutes of meditation, writing 3 things you're grateful for, or taking a short walk. Commit to doing this every day for 30 days, regardless of how you feel or what else is happening in your life. This isn't about the specific habit. It's about training your capacity for patient persistence. The Buddha taught that drops of water can wear away the hardest stone, not through force, but through consistent, patient contact. Your daily practice, however small, is more powerful than sporadic, intense efforts. We end with perhaps the most transformative principle of all, gratitude. The Buddha taught that appreciation for what you have is the foundation of contentment, and contentment is the foundation of happiness. But Buddhist gratitude isn't just about feeling thankful for good things. It's about recognizing the gift of existence itself, the miracle that you're alive, conscious, and capable of experiencing anything at all. Even in difficult circumstances, the fact that you can think, feel, and choose your responses is extraordinary. Dr. Robert Emmons at UC Davis has conducted extensive research showing that people who practice gratitude regularly have stronger immune systems, sleep better, feel more optimistic, and are more generous to others. Gratitude literally rewires your brain for positivity and resilience. The traditional Buddhist practice is to contemplate 3 things: the preciousness of human life, the rarity of favorable circumstances, and the impermanence of everything. This isn't about toxic positivity or pretending problems don't exist. It's about maintaining perspective on what's truly important. Think about this moment right now. You're breathing without effort. Your heart is beating without your conscious control. You have access to clean water, food, shelter, and information. You can read, think, and make choices about your life. These aren't small things. They're miracles that billions of people throughout history couldn't access. Buddhist gratitude also includes appreciation for difficulties. Every challenge you face is an opportunity to develop patience, compassion, wisdom, or strength. Your problems aren't punishments. They're teachers. Your struggles aren't evidence that something's wrong with you. They're evidence that you're human and growing. I remember reading about a woman who was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Instead of becoming bitter, she started a gratitude practice. She said, "Cancer taught me to appreciate every sunset, every conversation with my children, every simple pleasure I had been taking for granted. I'm grateful for my illness because it woke me up to how precious life is." The practice of gratitude transforms your relationship with time. Instead of rushing toward future goals or dwelling on past regrets, you become present to the gifts that are already here. This isn't about settling for less. It's about recognizing that contentment comes from appreciating what you have while working toward what you want. Research by Dr. Sonia Lyubomirsky shows that gratitude practices are most effective when they're varied and specific. Instead of just thinking, "I'm grateful for my family," you might think, "I'm grateful for the way my daughter laughs at her own jokes," or "I'm grateful for my partner's patience when I'm stressed." The deepest level of Buddhist gratitude is appreciation for the interconnected web of conditions that make your life possible. The farmers who grew your food, the teachers who shared their knowledge, the ancestors who preserved wisdom for you to discover, the strangers who contribute to your well-being in countless invisible ways. Here's a powerful practice. Each night before sleep, identify 3 specific things you're grateful for from that day. But don't just list them. Really feel the appreciation in your body. Let the gratitude expand from your heart throughout your entire being. This practice trains your mind to look for good things and creates neural pathways for positivity. Buddhist gratitude also extends to your future self. You can be grateful now for the wisdom you'll gain from current challenges, the strength you'll develop from persevering through difficulties, and the joy you'll experience when you apply these principles consistently. The ultimate insight of gratitude is that you don't need to achieve anything, acquire anything, or become anyone different to experience deep contentment. Everything you need for happiness is already available to you. The practice is simply learning to recognize and appreciate what's already here. These 12 Buddhist principles aren't just ancient wisdom. They're practical tools for transforming your life starting right now. Mindful awareness helps you respond instead of react. Accepting impermanence helps you flow with change. Non-attachment frees you from desperate grasping. Self-forgiveness heals old wounds. The middle way creates sustainable progress. Understanding interdependence connects you to something larger than yourself. Loving kindness opens your heart to joy. Accepting what you cannot control focuses your energy on what matters. Present moment living brings you home to your actual life. Right speech creates harmony in relationships. Patience and persistence build lasting change. Gratitude transforms ordinary moments into extraordinary experiences. You don't need to become a monk or retreat to a monastery to benefit from these teachings. You can practice them in traffic, at work, in your relationships, and in the quiet moments of your daily life. The Buddha's message is simple. Suffering is optional, happiness is possible, and the path to transformation is available to everyone. Start with just one principle. Practice it consistently for a week. Notice what changes, then add another. These aren't beliefs you need to adopt. They're experiments you can try. Your life is the laboratory, and you are both the scientist and the subject. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. The transformation of a lifetime begins with a single moment of awareness. That moment is now. That choice is yours.